After being the legitimate daughter of the marquis house for 15 years, it wasn't until my coming-of-age ceremony that I discovered I was an impostor. I thought I would be kicked out of the family. Unexpectedly, my once gentle and doting elder brother, Gu ZiYan, trapped me by his side. I tried to escape the cage, but my wings were repeatedly clipped. After enduring countless hardships to rise to a high position, when I finally held my long sword against Gu ZiYan's neck, he frowned and asked me, "Have you never loved me?" I smiled and said, "No one would love their enemy." Ding! RoyalStory reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. When the news of Gu ZiYan's return to the mansion reached me, I was about to drink the miscarriage medicine. As the messenger nanny stepped into the courtyard, I quickly poured the medicine into the potted plant by the window. "Miss RoyalStory, the young marquis has returned, and the madam calls for you." The messenger nanny was my mother's attendant. My heart trembled, and the hand hidden in my sleeve shook slightly. With so many bandits to the south, how could Gu ZiYan return so quickly? If he came back so soon, what about the child in my belly? After covertly hiding the medicine bowl, I replied, "I'll wash up and come right away." The nanny grumbled a few dissatisfied words and waited outside the courtyard. The servants in the mansion always curry favor and take advantage of others' misfortunes, and I have become accustomed to it. 2 years ago on my coming-of-age day, the moment Gu ZiYan, who resembled my mother by 80%, appeared, she attracted everyone's attention. Without a doubt, she was the true legitimate daughter, and I was the fake. No one knew when we had swapped our identities. I had stolen 15 years of glory and wealth from Gu ZiYan and should have been expelled from the marquis house. But on my coming-of-age day, a drunken Gu ZiYan, after learning of my true identity, broke into my room and took me by force. Perhaps to avenge his real sister, he used grandmother's reluctance as an excuse, stripped me of my surname, and kept me in the mansion. During the day, I was the unwelcomed Miss RoyalStory. At night, I was his outlet for desires. In the past 2 years, everything I once owned had been handed over to Gu ZiYan, including my engagement, which also became hers. With no menstruation for 2 months, I secretly visited a female doctor yesterday and obtained a miscarriage medicine. I looked at myself in the bronze mirror, my face was calm, but deep in my eyes was an inescapable despair. I had planned to deal with the bastard in my belly while Gu ZiYan was away subduing the bandits in the south. But he returned at such a critical moment. If my father and mother found out about this. The young marquis brought back specialties from the south and is waiting for you. The nanny urged impatiently again. "I'm coming," I replied softly. I tidied up my clothes, applied a layer of lip red to my pale lips, and dabbed some rouge on my cheeks to ensure I didn't look too frail before stepping out. This wasn't about being overly cautious. Gu ZiYan was almost monstrous in his intelligence, and those eyes could see through everything. In front of him, I had no choice but to wear a mask. On the way, the nanny repeatedly hinted, "The young marquis still thinks of you." Even when subduing bandits in the south, he didn't forget to bring you gifts. Don't clash with him like before. Over these 2 years, I hadn't stopped resisting. But as a woman in the inner chambers, I couldn't cause much of a stir. Instead, it made my parents grow distant from me. The servants in the mansion also saw me as unreasonable and disrespectful to Gu ZiYan. In the main hall, a young girl's cheerful voice reached my ears. "Brother knows I love shoe brocade. I'm going to make my first summer dress out of this shoe brocade and make all those noble girls envious." Sitting above, Mother had a loving expression, though her words were reproachful, her tone was full of doting. "Your room is already full of dresses, yet you want more. The ones made a few days ago, I haven't even seen you wear." The figure standing in the hall chuckled, "If Wanlon likes them, she can have as many dresses as she wants." "Only your brother spoils you like this," Father said helplessly. What a harmonious family. I walked forward with downcast eyes. RoyalStory greets father, mother, sister, and brother. Gu Wanlon, leaning beside mother, said coquettishly, "Why are you so late? Brother has worked hard subduing bandits in the south and even brought you a gift, yet you kept him waiting." I looked at the cold-faced Gu ZiYan, bowed my head, and apologized, "Sorry for the late." "Please forgive me, brother." All right, mother said, breaking the awkward atmosphere. "ZiYan, what did you bring for RoyalStory?" Gu Wanlon also turned her head to look at him. Gu Ziyan's lips curled slightly, his voice clear but full of malice. Nothing for her. Gu Wanlon couldn't help but laugh, her eyes filled with undisguised pride, only stopping when Mother gave her a stern look. Why? Father asked in a deep voice. She's not worthy. Those dark, ominous eyes looked at me coldly, as if they could devour me whole. I suppressed my fear and did not meet his gaze. The room fell into a terrifying silence until Mother finally changed the subject. In 5 days, it'll be the day to visit Xining Temple for prayers. I've arranged for some weavers to make a few plain clothes for Wanlon and Rian. You two should return to your courtyards, the weavers will come later to measure you. 5 days from now would be the 4th of April, the Bathing Buddha Festival. Every year, the noble ladies of the capital would voluntarily take their daughters to Xining Temple outside the city for prayers. This year was no exception. I was relieved to escape the main hall. However, it wasn't long after I returned to my courtyard that instead of waiting for the seamstress, I encountered Gu ZiYan, radiating hostility. He pinned me against the door, wiped off my lipstick with one hand, his voice like ice. Don't you want to guess why I didn't bring anything for you? I turned my head away. I don't deserve it. Heh. He sneered. Who did you see yesterday? Though his voice was low, it was as sharp as a blade, making one feel as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. Gu ZiYan had planted informers around me. Could he have found out? I froze immediately, instinctively trembling, and it took a while to steady my voice. I don't understand what you're saying. He grabbed the back of my head and turned my face. Do you need me to help you remember? Who did you see at the Jade Melody Pavilion yesterday? I breathed a sigh of relief, as it wasn't about the pregnancy. Shinjunemo. Regarding Shinjunemo, I had nothing to hide. My relationship with him was clean and innocent. Mother often uses certain kinds of rouge and powder, which I know best. She asked me to go out and buy them for her yesterday, so I went to the Jade Melody Pavilion. I was inside for no more than a quarter of an hour before leaving. We didn't talk. You don't have to worry about me stealing Shinjunemo from Gu Wanlon. I explained. Shinjunemo was once my fiancé, and the Jade Melody Pavilion was also a property of the Shin family. Shinjunemo and I grew up together as childhood sweethearts. If nothing unexpected had happened, our engagement would have taken place after my coming-of-age ceremony. But life is unpredictable, and no one expected I was a counterfeit. Shinjunmo's mother was a lady of rank and naturally wouldn't want her son to marry a counterfeit. So the engagement was rightfully transferred to Gu Wanlon. He gave you lipstick. Gu ZiYan continued to rub my lips harshly. I chuckled in anger, pushing him away. Since you've set people to spy on me, how come you don't even understand the context? I sent that lipstick to Gu Wanlon's room as soon as I returned to the mansion. Should I call her over for a confrontation? His eyes were deep, revealing nothing of his thoughts. After a long pause, he finally spoke in a low voice, "You'd better not have such thoughts." Just then, a maid called from outside, "Miss, the seamstress is here to measure you for your clothes." Got it. I glanced at Gu ZiYan. Finished questioning? If you're done, then leave, unless you want the entire marquis estate to know you disregard ethics by being intimate with your sister. You are not my sister. Too tired to argue, I took off my outer garment and lay on the bed, expressing my desire for him to leave. In that moment of agitation, my lower abdomen ached intensely. I couldn't let Gu ZiYan notice anything. After what felt like an eternity, just when I thought he had finally left, I felt a chill on my collarbone, and a small jade pendant hung around my neck. A peach blossom-shaped pendant, crudely carved. I hated peach blossoms the most and instinctively wanted to tear it off, but he threatened. If you dare to take it off, I'll have the Jade Melody Pavilion smashed tomorrow. I had no choice but to comply. But the next day, the jade pendant was mocked by Gu Wanlon. Even if you dress plainly to visit the Xining Temple, sister, this pendant is too shabby. Wearing something so roughly made out of the house brings shame to the marquis' estate. I didn't say a word, but seeing Gu ZiYan's face darken like the bottom of a pot actually improved my mood a bit. When Gu ZiYan returned to the estate, it seemed he had withdrawn all the informers watching me. After all, under his watchful eye, I couldn't stir up much trouble. The child in my belly was always a problem, so taking advantage of an upcoming trip to the Xining temple for prayers, I visited my best friend Gu ZiYan under the pretext of exchanging Buddhist scriptures, hoping for her help. Only Gu ZiYan had always known about the things between Gu ZiYan and me. What? You're pregnant? Xiangnin was horrified after hearing my words. How many months? 2 months. That damned Gu ZiYan, truly a beast. Xiangnin spat harshly. I really don't know what to do, so I came to you. The marquis' estate had many people and prying eyes. With Gu ZiYan back, I had no chance to take abortive medicine. Xiangnin paced anxiously in her room. Let me think. During these 2 years in the marquis' estate, how have the marquis and marchioness treated you? Xiangnin suddenly asked. I was taken aback, unsure how to respond. When my parents learned I wasn't their biological daughter, they wanted to send me away. Later, Gu ZiYan forcibly kept me around, using grandmother's fondness for me as an excuse. Though they treated me the same on the surface over these 2 years. Not being their own blood, naturally, there was a difference. I once overheard my parents discussing that when the time was right, they would marry me off to a minister's son, beneficial to all. Xiangnin saw my hesitation. Knowing me for over a decade, she understood me best. Would you like to leave the capital? It was like a thunderclap in my ears. I looked at her in shock. Leave? Yes. She grabbed my hand. If you stay in the capital, you'll continue to suffer under Gu ZiYan and endure the disdain of that family. But if you leave the capital, you could escape them entirely. My body trembled slightly. Leaving the capital was something I had never considered. When I first learned the truth about my identity and was humiliated by Gu ZiYan, I had thought of ending it all. But it felt unfair, as if I was the one at fault. Why should I die because of it? 2 years passed in a blur. I was raised in the Gu family mansion since childhood, with a narrow vision, never thinking of escaping from Gu ZiYan or leaving the capital city. Isn't this the perfect opportunity? On the 4th day of April, there will be a Buddhist ceremony at Xining Temple. All the noble ladies of the capital will attend, including the princess. With so many people around and Gu ZiYan leading the guards, I don't believe he can keep an eye on you the whole time. Xiangnin quickly said. My cousin, who has been visiting my home recently, is returning to the south. I'll find a way to hide you on her boat heading to the south. Xiangnin and I discussed the plan all afternoon. By the time sunset arrived, and Gu ZiYan came to escort me back to the mansion, I reluctantly bid her farewell. Gu ZiYan, in a rare good mood, teased, so happy to spend time with Gu ZiYan? Yes. I controlled my rising lips, feeling a sense of exhilaration at the thought of soon escaping from Gu ZiYan, and my fear of him lessened. He snorted and tossed me a package wrapped in oil paper. I opened it to find my favorite childhood treat, sugar cakes, still warm, with the sweet smell infiltrating my senses. Then I threw up all over Gu ZiYan. Gu ZiYan frowned, but instead of wiping off the mess immediately, he asked, "Are you sick?" My stomach churned again, and I couldn't respond before another wave of nausea hit me. To the 100 Medicine Hall, Gu ZiYan instructed the coachman. No! I instinctively stopped him. Seeing his gaze on me, I replied, I just ate something too cold and upset my stomach. The 100 Medicine Hall is too crowded, I don't want to go. Then I'll have a doctor visit you at home. No need, some hot water and sleep will do. Gu ZiYan stared at me intensely, deep in thought. Luckily, he didn't insist. Back in my room, I pondered over my escape plan with Xiangnin. Xiangnin's cousin's family does business in the south. When I go south with her cousin, they will help me settle down. As for the child in my womb, I stroked my flat stomach, deciding to make a decision after I successfully escape. Discussing with Xiangnin all day was exhausting, and after vomiting in the carriage, I fell asleep without having dinner. I was startled awake by strong arms pulling me into an embrace and kisses raining on my neck. Feeling nauseated, I pretended to be calm and pushed him away. I'm on my period. Gu ZiYan said, I remember it's not these days. I told you, I ate something too cold, and my period came early. He looked at me searchingly in the dark, eventually sighing, you better not be lying. On the 4th of April, the Bathing Buddha Festival. To avoid arousing Gu ZiYan's suspicions, I didn't pack much, just some small silver pieces. Because Gu Wanlan refused to share a carriage with me, I traveled with the servants. She thought she was humiliating me, but it actually made things more convenient. Xiangnin and I planned to act upon arriving at Xining Temple. The Buddhist ceremony lasted 5 days. During these 5 days, many noble ladies and their daughters would stay at Xining Temple. The temple was quite far from the capital, and when we rested at an inn outside the city, Xiangnin's arranged contact discreetly knocked out one of the household maids and took her place beside me. "Miss Ruyan, I'm Qianyi, have you eaten?" This was our agreed-upon signal. "I only had some porridge," I replied. Seeing no one around, Qianyi slipped a small packet of sleeping powder into my hand and whispered, "This is a sedative. Once we're inside Xining Temple, it will be inconvenient for me to follow you closely. Use it in your maid's tea tonight, and then wait at the northwest gate of the temple. I will come for you before the hour of the pig." Understood. By the time we reached Xining Temple, it was already dusk. The princess also attended the ceremony, and her carriage led the procession. As I got off the carriage, I saw Gu ZiYan standing with the princess. Admiration and infatuation filled her eyes as she looked at him. I lowered my gaze. With someone who admires him, why does he have to cling to me? Gu ZiYan is a madman. But soon, I'll be rid of this madman. After settling in at the temple, Mother took Wanlan and me to greet the princess and many noble ladies before letting us return to our quarters. Wanlan and I shared a courtyard, and though she protested, the temple's arrangements left her no choice but to vent her anger on me. I bore it all and waited until 9 p.m. when the once noisy temple had quieted down. I drugged the maid serving me as instructed by Qianyi. Then, I made my way to the northwest gate to wait for Qianyi. At the hour of 10 p.m., Qianyi came for me, covered my face with a veil, and, along with a few others, escorted me down the mountain in secret. The guards escorting me rode swiftly, bypassing many mountain paths straight to the pier where the boat to the south awaited. At the ferry crossing, Xiangnin's cousin had been waiting for a long time. The moment she saw me, she asked with concern, "Are you feeling unwell?" Prior to this, Xiangnin had already informed her cousin that I was pregnant. I shook my head and only asked, "Sister, when are we leaving?" This journey seemed a bit too smooth, so smooth that it made me a little scared. "We can leave right now," Xiangnin's cousin supported me onto the boat, carefully reminding me. "You have never left the capital, and you probably haven't been on a boat much either. If you feel uncomfortable, you must tell me." However, before she could finish her words, she was interrupted by a cold voice. "Miss, where do you intend to take people from my marquis?" At the moment I heard the voice, my back stiffened, my whole body trembled, and I couldn't take another step. Gu ZiYan stretched out his hand and forcibly carried me off the boat. Xiangnin's cousin was just about to speak, "Who are you?" Only to see him lift his eyelids and say each word clearly, "The Southchen family, do you think your business is too smooth?" My face turned pale, and my lips trembled for a long time before I struggled to say, "It has nothing to do with them, it was my own idea." Upon hearing my voice, Gu ZiYan finally looked down at me, but his gaze was as sharp as a knife, filled with raging fury, as if he could devour me alive. "You want to leave the capital?" I closed my eyes and didn't respond to him. The turmoil in my stomach and the fear inside me left me unable to speak. Gu ZiYan didn't ask more questions, directly ordering people to take me back to the marquis. For the next 5 days, I didn't see him. The maids in my courtyard were all replaced with unfamiliar faces. They monitored my every move and did not disclose any outside information to me. In a way, I was imprisoned by Gu ZiYan. It wasn't until the end of the Buddha ceremony that I learned about Xiangnin's news from my mother. At that time, I was released by Gu ZiYan to have a meal with Mother and Gu Wanlan. They were completely unaware that I had attempted to escape. To them, Gu ZiYan said that I had suddenly fallen ill and returned to the mansion to recuperate. Gu Wanlan even hinted openly and covertly that I was not following the rules, that I even missed the Buddha ceremony, while my mother seemed to remember something and said to me, "Your father said that the Vice Minister of Works was accused this morning. His daughter, Shui Xiangnin, offended the princess and was disrespectful to her, resulting in house arrest. Don't meet with Shui Xiangnin these days." My mother knew that I was on good terms with Shui Xiangnin. Upon hearing this, I was shocked, nearly dropping the chopsticks from my hand. Though Xiangnin was bold, she would never dare offend the princess. She hadn't even spoken much to the princess. This baseless accusation, could it be Gu ZiYan? By the way, why haven't I seen father and brother? Gu Wanlan asked. They're still in the palace. I heard that there's been collusion between officials and merchants in the south, evading taxes, along with instability at the northern border. The south, Xiangnin's cousin. I didn't hear the rest of the conversation. I don't believe these are coincidences. Other than Gu ZiYan's revenge for my escape, I can't think of any other reason. I don't know how I finished that meal. As soon as I returned to my courtyard, I threw up everything I had eaten. Compared to my disgust towards Gu ZiYan, I felt more guilt inside. It was my actions that implicated Xiangnin and her cousin. With days of mental tension and my uneasy feelings, I fainted shortly after vomiting. When I woke up again, it was already late afternoon. Gu ZiYan was sitting by my bedside, one hand resting on my lower abdomen. Startled, I instinctively shrank back a few inches to avoid his touch. Not seeing him for a few days, just as I thought he came to confront me, he suddenly asked, "Do you really hate me that much?" I was stunned for a moment, then reacted, curling my lips as I looked at him mockingly. "Should I like you? Like someone who is worse than a beast, disregarding morals, and taking pleasure in tormenting me?" He instinctively retorted, "I never intended to torment you." "Really?" I clung tightly to the corner of the quilt, struggling to control my emotions. "Then what are the insults you hurled at me over the past 2 years, your protection of Gu Wanlan, your distrust and suspicion toward Shinjunemo and me?" His face turned whiter inch by inch. "Is this how you think of me? Don't you find it disgusting, Gu ZiYan?" I said. After all he did to me, he still pretended to be innocent. My eyes turned red. "Even if I'm not the biological daughter of the marquis, not your real sister, I've called you brother for 15 years, what are you if not a beast? What did I ever do wrong? My identity was switched 10 years ago, I was just a baby in swaddling clothes, what did it have to do with me? You all feel that I took away Gu Wanlan's things, but I returned everything, silks, satin, gold, silver, jewels, I even gave up the marriage contract, so why do you still treat me like this? I just want to stay far away from you all, to live with dignity, is that so hard?" After a bout of shouting, my hands supporting the bed lost strength, and I nearly fainted. Gu ZiYan tried to hold me, but I shook him off. "Not only do I hate you, I despise you. I wish you were dead. I wish you were cut into pieces, ground into dust." Gu ZiYan's pupils trembled violently, his lips parted but he couldn't utter a word. In the end, he almost fled in panic. Perhaps my emotions were too intense, for I felt a sharp pain in my lower abdomen. Recalling how Gu ZiYan touched my lower abdomen when I first woke up. I wasn't sure if he knew I was pregnant. But what I was sure of was that I still had to escape from Gu ZiYan, escape this prison. Otherwise, it would be a disservice to Xiangnin and her cousin for the harm they suffered because of me. However, I could no longer seek help from anyone else, I had to rely on myself. After resting for a night, I took the initiative to visit my mother's courtyard. Ever since Gu Wanlan returned 2 years ago, my mother had exempted me from morning greetings, and I seldom set foot in her courtyard thereafter. I knew, although my mother still treated me as her own on the surface, there was always a barrier in her heart. An orphan girl from who knows where, replacing her biological daughter and enjoying over a decade of wealth and comfort, anyone in her place would find it hard to treat me with a normal heart. However, my timing wasn't ideal, as Gu Wanlan was also in my mother's courtyard. Mother was holding a delicate jade hairpin, tying up her hair, while saying, "You're already so grown up, yet you still need your mother to tie your hair." Gu Wanlan coquettishly responded, "Mother ties the prettiest hairstyles, so I want mother to help." My eyes grew teary. Once upon a time, I too would act coyly at my mother's knees like this. Mother's maid reminded her, "Madam, Miss Ruyen is here." Only then did the two notice me. "Is there something you need, Ruyen?" Mother asked. Ruyen came to seek mother's help in finding a suitable husband for me, I told her. This was the only solution I could think of. With my power, I couldn't escape the capital, nor could I evade Gu ZiYan. The only option was to marry. Preferably, I'd marry a promiscuous nobleman with a harem. As long as I could leave the marquis residence, I'd have a chance to escape. Before my mother could respond, Gu ZiYan spoke disparagingly. My marriage to Junimo isn't even settled yet. Why are you so eager to marry? Do you want to marry before me that badly? You misunderstood. I lowered my gaze and said obediently. You were betrothed to the Shin family long ago. As soon as their mourning period is over, the wedding can take place. ZiYan is already of age, and staying unmarried at home for too long would invite gossip. Shortly after the Shin family and we exchanged the marriage contract, the old lady of the Shin family passed away. Shin Junimo had to observe 3 years of mourning, delaying his marriage to Gu ZiYan. This explanation was flawless even to Gu ZiYan, let alone my mother. Very well. Once your father returns from court, we will discuss this matter. Indeed, ZiYan is not young anymore, mother said. After leaving my mother's courtyard, I boldly exited the residence with the spies Gu ZiYan planted around me. If I was going to get married, the child inside me had to be dealt with promptly. The spy, thinking herself well concealed, eagerly asked, "Where is Miss ZiYan headed?" "I have a headache and need to get some medicine from the 100 medicine hall." "You can just instruct us servants to do such things. Why leave the residence yourself?" "The doctor needs to check my pulse to prescribe the right medicine." I looked at her. "Do you know my condition better than the doctor?" She sullenly shut her mouth and said no more. Upon arriving at the 100 medicine hall, I sought out the female doctor who had previously prescribed the miscarriage medicine. I was contemplating how to get rid of the spy to consult the doctor alone when, unexpectedly, the doctor, upon seeing me, proactively told the spy to wait outside, claiming that the treatment required privacy. Once the spy stepped out, she handed me the pre-prepared medicine. "Take 1 dose a day. You will experience abdominal pain for the first 2 days. If no blood clot is discharged after finishing all the medicine, come back to see me." I was puzzled. "How did you know?" She didn't reply but slipped a note to me along with the medicine packet. "You may leave now." Returning to the residence, I opened the note. It read, "ZiYan, Xiangnin has informed me about your situation. Don't worry, I will help you escape." The handwriting was very familiar, belonging to Shin Junimo, the same person whose countless letters were hidden in my dressing case. I didn't expect he would still know. Shin Junimo and I grew up together as childhood sweethearts. 2 years ago, when Gu ZiYan returned, our engagement was annulled. He sought me out many times thereafter. But each time he did, Gu ZiYan would make me suffer greatly. After I wrote him a farewell letter, we hadn't seen each other again, except the last time at the Jade Melody Pavilion. I burned the note and buried the ashes in a potted plant. I was grateful for his willingness to help, but I couldn't drag anyone else into this any longer. I had thought with mother's intervention, finding a husband for me would go smoothly. Unexpectedly, the next day, mother summoned me to the main hall and instructed me to accompany Gu ZiYan to the north. ZiYan does not understand mother's intention. Recently, soldiers from Yen country have frequently invaded us. The emperor has ordered your brother to guard the northern border. He intends to find you a husband among the reliable soldiers there. At that moment, I felt like I was walking on the edge of a cliff, one step into thin air, plunging into an abyss of endless weightlessness. Feeling a metallic taste in my mouth, I forced myself to speak. Have father and mother both agreed to this? Mother remained silent before replying after a long pause. I have discussed it with your father. We will prepare a generous dowry for you. This meant they agreed. After all, an adopted daughter, no matter how long she had lived here, was still an outsider. Keeping me in the capital would always be uncomfortable. Better to send me to the north. But Gu ZiYan, would he really let me marry a northern soldier? I closed my eyes tightly, tears streaming down. It was just changing the location of my imprisonment. The matter of going north was merely to inform me. They hadn't planned to ask for my consent. Within a few days, they began packing for the northward journey. Gu ZiYan also didn't dare to see me. It wasn't until I drank 3 doses of abortion medicine without any effect, and went to find the healer again with the remaining medicine. From her, I learned that the medicine had been switched to pregnancy-preserving medicine, and only then did I understand. No wonder Gu ZiYan avoided me and no longer tortured me. Even if I tried to escape, he only targeted Xiangnin and her cousin. It turns out he knew I was pregnant from the beginning. At the moment I learned the truth, I suddenly felt an unprecedented exhaustion. Perhaps I would never be able to escape from Gu ZiYan's grasp in this lifetime. No matter what I did, it would all be in vain. Unless I died. The night before heading north, an uninvited guest suddenly came to my courtyard. At that moment, I was just tying the white silk. The emperor had held a farewell banquet for Gu ZiYan in the palace, and I was the only one in the marquis' mansion who did not attend. This gave me an opportunity. If you die just like that, what about all the grievances you've suffered? A gentle voice sounded, and I looked over in disbelief. Shinjunimo stood smiling at the door, with the maid who was monitoring me lying unconscious at his feet. "Why are you here?" I asked hoarsely. "If we weren't here, we wouldn't know you were thinking of taking your own life." A fierce voice sounded again. But this time it was Xiangnin. Xiangnin rushed out from behind Shinjunimo and helped me down from the stool before scolding. "You were the one who said before that someone else deserved to die. So why are you giving up now?" Seeing her worried face, I was silent for a moment, wanting to speak, but tears fell first. "I really don't know what to do." Xiangnin took out a handkerchief to wipe the tears from my face and said, "We already know Gu ZiYan is taking you north. Shinjunimo and I came to help you." She took out a brocade box from her bosom and handed it to me. Inside is a fake death pill. Shinjunimo somehow got it. He tested it himself, and after taking it, there is no breath and the body becomes cold, lasting for 3 days. Also, tomorrow, Shinjunimo will arrange for someone skilled in disguise to join your party heading north. This person will help you fake death and escape. Xiangnin gnashed her teeth. How dare Gu ZiYan provoke my cousin? He's really hitting a steel plate. I was stunned. What? Don't be fooled by my cousin's gentle appearance. She is the head of the Qin family's trading company in the south of the Yangtze River. She's traveled far and wide for years. This is the first time someone has set her up. I recalled what my mother had said before about the tax evasion in the south. As expected, it was Gu ZiYan's doing. My cousin has already arranged for people along your route north. You just need to cooperate with Shinjunmo's people, Xiangnin said. Then she paused, as if remembering something, and spoke to Shinjunmo. "Do you have something to say?" I looked up and realized Shinjunmo had been watching me. Seeing we weren't talking, Xiangnin stood up and said, "Say what you need to. I'll keep watch at the door." After she left, a while passed before I spoke. "You don't need to do so much for me. I didn't want him and Xiangnin to get into trouble because of me. If I didn't, I would regret it for the rest of my life," Shinjunmo said softly. My nose tingled, and I didn't dare to look at him anymore. In the bottom layer of that brocade box, there's something else. Open it when you get to the north, Shinjunmo paused. It's the last resort. I was taken aback. Why wait until the north? Wasn't the plan to fake death and escape en route? Shinjunmo didn't answer but said, "It's always good to be more prepared." When I was about to say something more, Xiangnin came in, urging, "They seem to be back. We should go." Later, I understood what Shinjunmo meant by being more prepared. By the time Gu ZiYan and his people returned from the palace, Shinjunmo and Xiangnin had already left. Gu ZiYan seemed to have drunk a lot of wine. I could smell the alcohol from him even from a distance when he came to my room. "Don't come near me," I said coldly from the bed. He really stopped. "Ruyen," he called me. It was what he used to call me when we were kids. "Don't call me that," I frowned, "it makes me sick." His expression darkened, and after a long time, he said, "Some things are not as you think. When we get to the north, I'll explain it to you, okay?" I laughed sarcastically and said, "Are you afraid I'll die with the child in my belly?" Earlier, to cover up the traces of Shinjunmo and Xiangnin, I hanged myself just as the maids monitoring me were waking up. At that time, they panicked and saved me, so they must have told Gu ZiYan as soon as he returned. He turned pale and murmured, "No." "Exactly," I said coldly. "If I die, how will you find a suitable groom for me in the north?" "Impossible," he responded quickly, then in a low voice, "Give me some more time, and I'll marry you." I snorted, Gu ZiYan, you're truly disgusting. He wanted to say more, but I didn't have the energy to listen. I closed my eyes and ordered him to leave. If you don't want to see me die with your child, stay away from me. Gu ZiYan didn't say another word. After a while, I heard the door close. I didn't sleep all night. The next day, as we were leaving the mansion, my mother kept nagging Gu ZiYan with many instructions. When it was my turn, she looked complicated and only said, "You've suffered." I lowered my head and didn't reply. Gu ZiYan's destination in the north was far from the capital. Even with fast horses, it would take 7 or 8 days, not to mention taking me along. The journey in the carriage was bumpy, and it would take at least half a month. At the first relay station, I met the person Shinjunemo had arranged. She said to me, "In 2 days, we will pass through Wild Fox Ridge. Ambush has been set there, and someone might stab you. You just need to take the fake death pill at the right moment, and leave the rest to me." I didn't know their specific plan, so I could only nod. However, I still underestimated Gu ZiYan's madness. When the arranged assassin raised his sword to stab me, Gu ZiYan used his body as a shield and blocked in front of me. The assassin stabbed Gu ZiYan's shoulder, but was silenced by Gu ZiYan's sword to the throat. After subduing the remaining assassins, probably fearing that Gu ZiYan would torture them to reveal the mastermind, those who were still alive committed suicide without hesitation. The plan failed. Supported by a maid to the carriage, I suddenly remembered what Shinjunemo had said when he came to see me earlier. Could he have predicted the failure in advance? Or was it intentional? After dealing with the assassins, Gu ZiYan angrily boarded my carriage. "Didn't you know to dodge when the sword came?" Ever since he knew I was pregnant, Gu ZiYan hadn't lost his temper at me for a long time. I looked at his still bleeding shoulder, paused, and then spoke suddenly. "I will go north with you." Gu ZiYan was taken aback, clearly not expecting me to say this suddenly. "I will also give birth to the child and will never leave you again." The anger in Gu ZiYan's eyes suddenly turned into a bright light, and his voice trembled slightly. "Really?" I nodded, looking at his shoulder wound. "You should take care of your injury first." As soon as I finished, he pulled me into his arms forcefully. I didn't struggle, and the pungent smell of blood lingered in my nose. What a pity, I couldn't stab his heart with a single thrust. Thus, I no longer tried to escape and obediently followed Gu ZiYan north. Gu ZiYan also sensibly didn't pursue the origin of those assassins further. Half a month later, we arrived at the small city called Windridge. After settling in the town, I opened the exquisite box given to me by Shinjunemo. At the bottom of the box was a letter and a small iris-patterned jade pendant. After reading the letter, I understood why Shinjunemo had said it was the last resort. The iris jade pendant was proof of my identity. As early as 2 years ago, when Gu Wanlan returned to the mansion, Shinjunemo had taken the lead in investigating my background. He found a deranged maid who had served my mother and obtained an iris jade pendant from her, piecing together my identity from the maid's fragmented words. The neighboring country to Qi is Yan. Yan is a matriarchal society, and the two countries had always been distant, minding their own business. 17 years ago, Yan's most favored princess fell in love with a Qi man while visiting Qi and bore a child with him. However, the Qi man didn't love the princess, only using her wealth to gain fame and success. The princess couldn't accept the truth and died of hemorrhage during childbirth. The maid who served the princess wanted to escape back to Yan with the princess's child but was hunted down by the Qi man. To protect the princess's only bloodline, the maid infiltrated the marquis' mansion and swapped the princess's child with the newly born legitimate daughter of the mansion. That child was me. I am not a Qi native, but the daughter of the Yan country princess. In the letter, Shinjunemo said, "Windridge City lies between Yan country and Qi country. I can only help you this far. Gu ZiYan is suspicious by nature. The assassination during the journey was just to make him believe you couldn't make any waves. The rest is up to you." After burning the letter, I put the iris jade pendant back into the box. In recent years, Yan's queen had been resentful over the princess's death and frequently harassed the border cities. Windridge City, where Gu ZiYan was stationed, was the most severely harassed. Thus, all I needed to do was wait. I waited for 5 months. During these 5 months, I pretended to be moved by Gu ZiYan. Caring for him, loving him, cooking for him. I acted so well that everyone believed it. The guard General Gu had a deeply loving wife. Until I was 7 months pregnant, a wounded female assassin climbed into my yard. I hid her under the bed, helping her evade the search. I also made a deal with her. You know I'm from Yen and still help me? The woman's eyes were wary, her hand gripping the hilt at her back, ready to kill me if I answered wrongly. Killing me is useless. You won't escape Windridge City and might be dismembered by that General Gu. I held my stomach and poured her a cup of tea. Seeing her vigilance, I poured myself a cup, drank a sip, and then pushed her cup towards her. What deal do you want to make? She asked. I took out the iris jade pendant hidden in the box for 5 months and handed it to her. I want you to take this to Yan's queen, asking her to save me. I will help you leave Windridge City. She didn't ask why I was seeking help but asked, why do you think I can see the queen? I glanced at the gem-encrusted sheath at her waist. Just one of the gems could feed a family in Windridge City for a year. Seemingly aware, she coughed uncomfortably and said, You saved me, I can take this to the queen. However, our queen is busy, with the war between Yen and Qi imminent, she cannot spare time to save a Qi woman. I smiled slightly, just ensure it reaches her. Before leaving, the female assassin told me her name, Lin Yueru. In just 2 days, Lin Yueru returned to my yard. But this time, she knelt respectfully before me. Lin Yueru greets your highness. Everything went smoothly afterward. Taking advantage of Yan's army harassing Windridge City again, while Gu ZiYan went out to confront them. Lin Yueru set fire to my yard and escorted me to the Yen Imperial Palace. I resembled the Yen princess so much that the Yen queen wept upon seeing me. Upon learning of my ordeal, she immediately wanted to spare no effort to kill Gu ZiYan. I stopped her, Grandmother, I want to avenge myself personally. When I was 8 months pregnant, I gave birth prematurely to a stillborn child. My grandmother, the queen, worried that I would be heartbroken, planned to handle the stillbirth in secret. I said to her, please, have someone take this child to General Gu in Windridge City. Later, Lin Yueru told me that after Gu ZiYan saw the stillborn child, he lost control and thought that Yen country had kidnapped me, so he immediately led an attack on Yen. Following the defense map you drew, we took over Windridge City and captured Gu ZiYan alive. Although Lin Yueru was very happy, she still cautiously asked me, that was still your child, aren't you sad? I smiled, a child that wasn't expected, there's nothing to be sad about. When I saw Gu ZiYan again, he was locked away in Yan's prison. He looked incredulous when he saw me dressed in my fine clothes. Ru Yan? The maid beside me scolded him, how dare you? How can you address the title of the princess directly? Princess? His face grew blank for a moment, then he muttered, so you weren't captured after all. Then a trace of hope appeared on his face, what about our child? Dead, I said flatly, drawing the long sword from the guard's belt and placing it across his neck. An unwanted child, born only to die. He lowered his eyes, looking at the blade before him. With difficulty, he spoke, so, you were lying to me all along. You never loved me. I smiled at his words, no one could ever love their enemy. He closed his eyes, as if accepting his inevitable fate. However, I only stabbed the sword back into his previously injured shoulder. Letting him die would have been too easy. Once Windridge City fell, the Yen army stormed into Qi country like a hot knife through butter. After taking the 11th city, the Emperor of Qi sent a letter of surrender, promising to cede the cities and pay tribute for 100 years. After the Yen-Qi war ceased, my grandmother, the queen of Yen country, had someone return the tortured and unrecognizable Gu ZiYan to Qi country. With the beautiful excuse, thanking Gu ZiYan for his help, without which Yen country could not have won. The next time I heard news of Gu ZiYan was 2 years later. Xiao Nin got married, and I met Shinjun Mo, whom I hadn't seen in a long time. He didn't marry Gu Wanlan. After Gu ZiYan was sent back to Qi country, everyone in the Gu family was imprisoned. In one night, the Gu family was no longer present in the capital. Congratulations, you've finally gained your freedom, Shinjun Mo said to me. Yes, I finally gained my freedom. From now on, the sky is high for the birds to fly, and the sea is wide for the fish to leap. Things pass like flowing water, making life seem like a fleeting dream.